Now by Nigel Farage, fresh from posting his government's leaflet on the EU back through the Prime Minister's letter pod. Did they let you into Downing Street?
They did, and I did. Return to sender.
Very well.
No, I was pretty outraged that they decided to spend all this money telling us what we should think. Even the Electoral Commission have said very clearly that it's outside the spirit in which the referendum should be conducted.
Doesn't it offend a sort of British sense of fair play that in this one leaflet the Remain side has managed to spend more money than the whole of the Leave side will spend between now and June the 23rd?
I suppose if you looked at it on that level, yes, it is. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think the British people are going to be rioting in the streets over a £9 million Leave.
No, I didn't say that. Will they not just offend the sense of fair play, which Britain is famous for?
To be honest, I just don't think people are looking at the issue on that level that closely. And I think Alistair Darling, I mean, I wouldn't have characterised it as the way Alistair Darling did, but I do think he has a point, which I do think the Out campaign have to date been focusing very much on the process elements of the debate. So we've got the leaflet, we had the stuff about whether Out ministers would have the same access to information.
But wouldn't it be fair just to give his side, a free leaflet as well? That would just kind of even it up, and I would suggest, look, the British people, they may not even bother to read either of them, but they would at least say, yeah, that's fair, this one side's had £9 million of free leaflet, the other side gets it too.
It might do, but I do think, I mean, we're talking about neutrality. I mean, we have to remember the government is not neutral on this issue. No. The government has a clear view, and I think it is right, and it would be rather odd if the government was in a position with this whole debate going on that the British government couldn't officially express it.
But they're doing that every day. The British government is doing it on television, on radio, in the newspapers every single day. The argument is that at the end of this campaign, the Leave side will have had one leaflet delivered to each household, and the Remain side will have had two, and that simply isn't fair play.
Are you worried now the strength of the forces being lined up against you? The IMF has already come out this week, warned about the economic consequences of leaving. Mr. Obama's flying in next week to do the same. The CBI, the OECD, so on. These are pretty impressive names lined up against you.
Well, it rather helps, actually, for me, because I'm pushing this referendum as being the people versus the politicians. So the more the establishment club together, the better. This is about ordinary folk making up their minds, and I don't think... I mean, look at the level of threats that we've had already. I mean, who else can they produce? Virtually everybody in the world of international politics has already come out and declared they're for the status quo. It doesn't worry me at all.
Is there not a danger for Remain in this? I mean, as we can see from the United States in the success of Mr. Trump and of Mr. Sanders in the Democratic primaries, that there's an anti-establishment mood around. And you can see that in this country as well. And the Remain side becomes the establishment side, and that's what people vote against.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the narrative. But, I mean, if you look at the history of referendums, you look at sort of general elections. I mean, I worked on the No to AV campaign, when was that, back in 2011. The Yes to AV campaign, they tried to harness the supposed anti-establishment mood. If you look at the referendum in Scotland, the SNP were supposedly harnessing this anti-establishment mood. You look in the general election, Ed Miliband was supposedly harnessing an anti-establishment mood. Nigel himself was supposedly harnessing an anti-establishment mood.
Except that for most British people, they would regard Mr. Cameron and Mr. Miliband as part of the establishment. In this, they're being offered a choice between the traditional, you might call mainstream forces, and an alternative.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think when people see, with respect to Nigel, when people see Nigel or Nigel Lawson or Michael Gove or Boris making the campaign from the other side, they immediately think these are people who sit outside the political mainstream.
Can you, do we have any friends and allies that are on your side?
Yes, ordinary, decent people who want their country back and want to be self-governing.
No, but I'm speaking about friends and allies from abroad. Do we? Is there anybody really backing your side?
In private, when you talk to ministers from around the Commonwealth, you know, they all say that Britain turning its back on its friends 40 years ago was a wicked thing to have done, and that actually what we should be doing is opening ourselves up. Indeed, one of the Commonwealth conferences a few years ago, you know, debated a Commonwealth free trade area. So, yes, there are people who in private would say, look, if Britain leaves, our relationship can improve, but in public, they're all part of the international...
New Zealand and Australia, who were miffed in many ways when we joined because of what happened to their agricultural produce, they're all saying we should stay. Even Tony Abbott,
Yeah,
the former right-wing Prime Minister of Australia, who may be thought to be almost, in some ways, was seen as the Nigel Farage of Australia. Even he now says we should stay.
It is, as I said earlier, it is the establishment, the international establishment, and all those organisations clubbing together. I don't, at the end of the day, think it makes an ape of the difference. This is a very simple proposition, this referendum. You see, AV wasn't. That was the point. I was on the other side, Dan, in the AV campaign. My problem was I couldn't explain to people what AV was in a sentence. It was you know,
You're not going to try this morning, are you?
well, no, I'm not. No, it's too difficult. That's why we lost. But the point about this referendum, actually, what we're saying to people is this is very simple. If you vote to leave, you vote for us to be a self-governing nation. Doesn't mean it'll solve all of our problems, but we will be in charge. And that is a very simple proposition.
Given everything that's been thrown at it so far from the Remain side, and all these big guns that have been ready wheeled out, even though the campaign only officially starts today, are you not surprised that the Remain side is not doing better, that it's kind of nip and tuck, to use a phrase, in the polls? Indeed, the Leave side even showing a little bit of momentum?
It depends on how you read the polls. I mean, I don't actually think it is nip and tuck. I mean, if you look at the polls, what I think is significant about the polls is really from the start of the year, the polls haven't really showed that much of a shift. We've had the consistent situation where the online polls show it sort of neck and neck, maybe within just about ahead. But the telephone polls, which everybody seems to regard as the most accurate measure, have shown significant Remain leads.
Haven't they shown Leave narrowing the gap, though?
Maybe slightly, but I mean, the lead is still there. And the point is, I think this is the big disadvantage, that the fundamental disadvantage out has. As I've said, we see consistently in elections in this country, there is innate bias towards the status quo. I actually think for Leave to have a chance of winning the campaign, they need to very quickly start to be posting double-digit leads.
Double-digit?
Yeah, I think to be able to offset
that's a high bar.
that status quo bias.
I understand the argument about the status quo. I get that. And that is the thing we have. I mean, if this referendum was, should we join the European Union, it would be a thumping no, because of all the disadvantages that membership entails. I'm sure we'd agree on that, if not much else. The difference, I think, is this, or the plus side for us is this. I don't think there's any doubt that the Leave side has a bit of momentum over the last few weeks. But what's really interesting is the certainty to vote. When you talk to people who are committed for Leave, you know, they say, basically, if I have to be dragged on a stretcher, you know, I'm going down to vote to leave.
You think your side's more motivated?
I think there's more energy on our side. I think there's more passion on our side. And a lot of people I talk to who are just about Remain voters say, well, kind of, you know, my life's okay, I've paid the mortgage and I'm all right. But are they actually going to be motivated to go and vote? And in the end, it sounds obvious, but it's those that turn out that win elections.
Will Mr Corbyn have got some inspiration, some motivation behind the centre-left voters, which Remain needs to win, because Tory voters will probably split more Nigel Farage's way? Was that an inspiring, inspirational, motivational speech yesterday?
Well, I think in truth, Jeremy Corbyn is only slightly marginally more Eurosceptic than Nigel, if truth be told. But I think what he has done is he has given people on the left licence to, if you like, align themselves with David Cameron and the senior sort of Tories who.
Has he? He spent most of yesterday bashing the government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, of course, he's leader of the opposition.
That's his job. But I mean, I think that's the fundamental thing. He's basically given the green light to people on the left to vote Remain.
We know Vote Leave is now the official campaign. It wasn't the one you wanted, but that's it. Will you appear on Vote Leave platforms now?
Oh, Lord, yes, of course. And in fact, right now, Patrick O'Flynn, one of our MEPs, is appearing with Ian Duncan Smith at a Vote Leave platform, and Chris Grayling is coming onto a Grassroots Out platform with me and some others on Monday. So there is now full cooperation.
As things stand at the moment, do you think you're going to win?
Yes.
And you think you're going to win? Because you famously called the election correctly, didn't you? So what do you think the result will be?
I got a couple wrong as well in my time, but no, I think so. Yes, I think.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.